Clemson versus Georgia Tech. Is the season on the line? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're an everydayer, thank you so much for coming back and being a part of every episode. We really appreciate it. You know how we do it here on Locked On, exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday every single week, and especially during the football season and post-game shows as well immediately after the game, so you can watch that right here on YouTube and on podcast as well. Got a lot to talk about today, but before we get into it, I wanted to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. All right, we've got a lot to discuss today. Still getting ready for that Georgia Tech game as I'm recording this. We're at Thursday and getting ready for the weekend, and really the first game of the season that is an ACC matchup. If Clemson loses versus Georgia Tech on Saturday in their first ACC matchup of the season, they could be the start of the beginning of the end. You know, they already have one loss against LSU to start the season off, which many people feel like that they still could be two really good teams that just fought down to the wire, and LSU's still a good team and Clemson's still a good team. But there is also still that question out there that maybe Clemson isn't as good of a team as we expected. Maybe what we are seeing is actually the best that they can do. Now, personally, I still have hope that Clemson can do better than what we've seen so far the past two Saturdays. But as we get into this schedule, we know that Clemson has a very difficult ACC schedule. You can, if you're a non-Clemson fan, you're probably going to get in the comments and mock me about this. But at the end of the day, Georgia Tech knows what they want to do with their offense. They're not that much further behind Clemson when it comes to rankings and statistics, although they've played different teams for sure, but they're not that much further behind. And Georgia Tech knows what they're going to do on offense, and they're at home. And so that's always a dangerous situation. This was a trap game even before we were in this situation questioning Clemson's offense. Not only that, the next three games, you have Syracuse, you have a bye, and then you have North Carolina at North Carolina. Not really too worried about at North Carolina, but you're definitely worried about Syracuse. At Boston College, they're doing pretty well with their offense as well. One of the better offenses so far statistically. SMU, you know, they're going to want a revenge game. Duke's not an easy out. Florida State is a much better team this season. Friday night game against Louisville, also one that scares you. And then Furman, and ultimately an away game to end the regular season against South Carolina. The schedule is difficult. If you wanted me to circle them, I'm circling Georgia Tech. I'm circling Syracuse, Boston College, SMU, Duke, Florida State, Louisville, South Carolina. These are all games that, I mean, what did I just name? Six games where you really don't know if you can pick Clemson as the favorite. You know, they may win the game, but are they going to cover? You know, are they going to live up to expectations? We have no proof right now that they can live up to expectations. We have a lot of hope that they will rebound. A lot of people on social media saying that they'll just get better. You know, they'll fix it. And I believe that I am in that boat as well. but we don't really know. I mean, that is as big of a guess as saying they won't fix it. There's no true proof that this team can do it just because last season's team got a little bit better. Clemson's 1-1 going into Atlanta. Georgia Tech's 2-0. Bobby Dodd Stadium is a stadium that we've mentioned they haven't played in. I think there's only like 4 players that have even been to Atlanta to play in this stadium. So the large majority of the team has never played against Georgia Tech at their home stadium, which is kind of crazy to say. But Clemson cannot start out sluggish. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a longer game. To me, if I'm Georgia Tech, I'm trying to dictate the time of possession. ESPN, super popular or infamous, famous analyst Paul Feinbaum said that if Clemson loses this game, then college football playoff chances are on life support. I would say, if they lose this game, what we've seen from 2024 is that you're going to probably not be in the driver's seat to get into the ACC championship game. If you lose this game, your only hope is to get into the ACC championship game. So then you have to be perfect the rest of the season outside of the South Carolina game and outside of the Furman game. So you have to run the slate clean the rest of the season and be perfect, which I think is going to be extremely difficult. To me, this is the first test that they need to get over and get through. Losing an ACC opener would mean that Clemson would need Georgia Tech, to basically lose twice, potentially later on in the season. And it would put Clemson back into a scenario where they're not in the driver's seat. And we remember how that was last season, where you just had to hope that a team screwed up. And thankfully last season, Miami screwed up because of Syracuse. But you can't guarantee that every single season. And a team like this is too talented to be needing to hope that other teams falter because they faltered early. Really, it stresses out the rest of the season if you don't walk away with a win here. And so that's why it could be the season on the line, because you're going to have to rally the troops to play undefeated when they've already proven to you they can't win their most difficult game of the season and they can't win their first ACC game of the season. To me, you're going to have razor thin margins and you're going to be losing control very quickly. Georgia Tech, we know, is going to play Haynes King. As I mentioned in the previous show, I was concerned about whether or not he would be back from injury or not. Would they be playing Aaron Philo or not? But Haynes King is going to play the game. He's going to start the game, and he's going to run the ball. So Clemson's defense now knows who they need to prep for, and that's what they need to prep for is a heavy dose of running the ball, and they need to make sure that they tackle well in this game. Clemson's offense, can they carry forward what they did in the second half against Troy with 24 unanswered points? Really, it goes back to don't overcomplicate it. We know Cade's not seeing the field. We know he's not making the right decisions. So it's not necessarily that he needs to start strong, but what group needs to start strong? And the group that needs to start strong for Clemson is the running back group. They need to do that. Now it's going to be a little bit more difficult because you don't have Tristan Lee and you don't have Elijah Thurman. Those guys are questionable right now. So we're not 100% sure if you're going to have 2 potential starters on your offensive line. We don't know if you're going to have Antonio Williams or Khalil Barnes. Those 2 guys are also questionable. Now, you could be optimistic and say that means that they're going to play, but it's not 100% yet. But to me, the biggest thing is starting with the running game, building on what worked and working from there. Next segment, we're going to talk about who could be actually the leader. We said it was Cade Klubnik. Dabo said it was Cade Klubnik. Then he said it was Antonio Williams. But a lot of you reminded me about a halftime speech that happened against Troy, and maybe, just maybe, it's someone else. Right here on Locked On Clemson. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered the most. So let's break it down. Now, specifically for Locked On Clemson and the Clemson Tigers, I wanted to give a shout out to Jack Smith, the punter, because he was in that area where we were concerned about that position. We didn't really know what we were going to expect from the punter position, and he's been one that's been quietly reliable for the Tigers when they've needed it the most. And really, it comes down to the stress level. You know, when other parts of the team are not working out well, to be able to rely on the punter to change the field position and to kick consistently kind of takes that pressure off and gives the offense a chance to take a step back and reset and try again, gives your defense a chance to set up in a better situation because of that field position. Just like Jack Smith delivers for Clemson, DoorDash delivers for you on Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. With all-wheel drive, standard, and every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season in your life. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but every day. Smooth handling, intuitive controls, beautiful look of the cars as well. You can feel that Japanese craftsmanship in every single detail, from the metallic accents and to the available Napa leather on the inside upholstery. It is truly a car that can do more for sure. Like our players on Clemson, we sweat every detail because you make every move count. Impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Peter Woods came into halftime and gave a passionate speech. We heard from DeMonte Capehart this week that he came in and showed that he was a true leader for the team, not really a guy who's out there to have everything with his name on it, but it's about true leadership, and it's about bringing that heart to this team that is struggling right now and that is dealing with adversity on the field and off the field through media, social media. You know, we hear about the players being on social media. We know they are now. There's no longer that social media ban that the seniors used to do, and that's never going to come back. And maybe it should in a lot of ways, but they see where the fans are frustrated. They hear the boos. They see what the media is saying, like the Paul Feinbaums of the world saying they're on life support when it comes to the college football playoffs. And they see what's happening to the offense, really. And the offenses can't seem to get out of its own way, can't seem to swim forward. They're just treading water. And I said on the radio, maybe they need to throw them a life support pool noodle. You know, maybe they need to throw them something, a net or something to help out. And maybe that guy is Peter Woods. You know, we talked about Cade Klubnik being the leader, possibly being the best player on the team. Is Cade Klubnik the best player on the team? Well, if he is, he's not necessarily playing like it right now. Not just a little bit under 60% completion, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not doing very good to start the season. And for the rest of the team, Antonio Williams, that guy that you thought would be someone you could rely on, basically goes out with injury so quickly that he can't be an impact to the team, you know, receiving at all. So where is Clemson going to find that leader, that best player. Well, maybe it's just Peter Woods. If he's willing to step up and be that guy who can be the voice of the team. As they walked into the locker room down 16-3 and fans booing them, I'm sure there's a lot of frustration going on. And Peter Woods, according to reports, stood up, gave a fiery speech, rallied the team, and helped them kind of reset and go into the second half doing much better. Could this be a turning point for the season? You need guys like this to step up because the coaches can't do everything, and obviously the quarterback right now is not, meeting his expectations himself either. But adversity reveals true character for players, and how a team responds is really what's unique to every single team. As we've mentioned in the previous shows, comparing 2020 or 2016 to 2025, the reason why it's not a fair comparison at all, the only thing that is the same is that they played Troy. Really. I mean, that's the only thing that's the same, is that they played Troy and they won that game, because the team then beat Auburn the game before in the opener. Clemson did not beat LSU. So the only similarity there is that they just happened to play a same game. And I joked that both teams played South Carolina at the end of the season as well. Imagine the luck and the coincidence of that. But what makes teams different is the character, is the response to adversity. And as with that 2016 team, the reason why those guys went on to go into the NFL, and a lot of them having great NFL careers still, the reason why those guys went on to 2 national championship games back-to-back and eventually winning one is because of how they responded. I mean, even in the national championship game for that team, they had to respond late in the game and make some ridiculous catches. We all give Deshaun Watson a lot of credit, but those guys that caught those balls from him had to make some extremely difficult circus catches to keep the ball moving. They had guys, they had leaders that stepped up and were voices of the team. Go be legendary, as Deshaun used to say. Let's go be legendary. But it does have to reflect on the football field as well. You can't just say it and be all hype and energy and then not respond on the field, because that's what we're feeling right now with Dabo. For the whole month of fall, we had a lot of hype from every single angle with Dabo. And we had a lot of high expectations and hype from every single angle with the media, the national media. And then when they came out and they didn't perform well at all, well, you felt kind of jaded. If you have leaders on the team that are just vocal leaders but don't actually perform on the field, then you also will feel jaded as a player, as a fan. But Peter Woods is not that guy. He's definitely someone that you want setting the tone. You want refocusing the group because you know that he can hold his own. And really, as Dabo Swinney mentioned, they only count 2 true touchdowns against LSU. The touchdowns against Troy one was a fluke pick six, and another one was, in Dabo's mind, a staff problem. They should have just called timeout. So the defense, can they hold their own while the offense figures it out again? I think so. I think that's where your hope lies if you're a Clemson fan, is leaning on Peter Woods and the defense and their opportunistic ways of playing with their multiple interceptions and multiple forced fumbles. If they continue to get a lot of turnovers and don't allow a lot of true touchdowns, then Clemson's offense can't afford to start off slow a little bit. But what we would like to see is an offense that knows what they want to do with the football. Ultimately, the team has to figure it out, because the rest of the season is going to get not easier, but is going to continue to be a challenge for Clemson, especially if their offense continues to sputter. Speaking of the offense, we're going to talk about Cade Klubnik and his first trip to Bobby Dodd Stadium in segment number 3 right here on Locked On Clemson. NFL season is here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You know how I love keeping an eye on my fantasy football team, how I love looking at different game plays, and also when I do my quarterback challenges and pick'ems, I go look and see exactly who has the best chance to perform well, and I try to manipulate my salary cap to make sure that my quarterback is taken care of, because that's where a ton of points come from on the fantasy side of things. I love using FanDuel because it's super simple, easy to use. You've got player prop bets if you want to get into that. I've seen my friends send me this really long list of a same game parlay. It is crazy, and he was able to kind of combine everything all into one big play, and it all worked out for him really, really well. Or you can jump in on live action, so you don't have to be a week ahead or a few days ahead. You can get in right now, anytime during the season. It's quick, easy, and fun always. So what are you waiting for? Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Segment 3. Hey, I wanted to say thank you so much for the everydayers out there that are sticking with me to the very end. You know, most of the time I see the watch time is really for the newbies, the first and second segment, but then the third segment is really here for you and I, the everydayers, to talk through it. And I wanted to say another thing too. You know, it is September 11th, and that was a really important day for America, a really sad day for America, but a really big day for me, because it was the reason why I went into the military and why I joined the Army. So, you know, I just wanted to say that September 11th is still on my mind. And with everything that's been going on this week and the tragedies around the country, my thoughts and prayers are with everyone out there. We are brothers and sisters of the same country of America. And I don't want you to forget that. We need to learn how to love each other a little bit more than we are right now, because we're all one, and that is Americans. All right, so segment 3, Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik needs to take a big jump forward, and that big jump forward, I think, could happen in Atlanta. Cade Klubnik's first game in Bobby Dodd Stadium, which is kind of crazy to think. It's been a house of horrors for those of you who have been around Clemson football for a while. But, you know, really, they haven't played there in like 5 years. And, you know, it could be one of those times where Clemson actually figures things out. You know, a lot of times we say, well, there's no proof. And I say this, there's no proof that they can. But Cade Klubnik did rebound in the second half versus Troy. You know, he was 18 for 24, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now Georgia Tech's defense is improved, so it's going to be a challenge. It is a road game, but maybe, just maybe, there's a situation where he gets away from home. He gets in an area that is not comfortable, but it kind of gives him a refresh. You know, he gets to see the city lights. He said he wants to see the skyline of Atlanta. It will be a hostile situation there, but Clemson fans travel really well there too. Right there in downtown, Clemson really wanting to get that true road win to start the season. Cade Klubnik, you know, this could be a time where he resets. This could be a time where maybe he doesn't get back to Heisman hopeful, but what does he need to do? Well, the first thing is We know he needs to calm his feet down. He needs to trust his pocket. And also, it's not just so much about like trusting his pocket to not get hit. He needs to just be okay getting hit in a lot of ways. He admitted this week that he seems to have felt that weight of expectations. He's a senior, he's older, he's expected to be a leader. And I kind of understand that, coming from a situation where I quit my career to a successful career in corporate marketing to become a pilot. Right. And I'm, 38 years old, and everybody else around me is 20, something. And they're all looking to me because I'm older. I'm the uncle, I'm Unc, as they say, but I'm kind of the senior, right? They're looking at me as a guy who should be able to figure things out, who should be responsible, who should be showing up on time and being professional, having that display of excellence and studying as much as possible and doing the right things the right way and showing the right habits to everyone else around. So there's a lot of weight on that when you're a little bit older and everyone else is looking up to you. For me too, when you change careers, your family's expecting a lot of you too. You don't want to fail because you have, people at home, expecting things from you. Now, Cade doesn't really have that wife and kids like I do, but when it comes to being the quarterback, there are a lot of people looking at you and counting on you to be perfect. And you really don't have to be perfect, but in your mind, you think you do. And so my encouragement to Cade would be nobody wants him to be perfect, but we want him to play within himself. We want him to play within the offense, exactly what he's been practicing with Garrett Riley and during the weekdays. We want him to play within what he's been practicing, what he's familiar with. We don't want him to go out there and pick a wide receiver before the snap even happens. We don't want him to go out there and panic at this first sign of pressure in the pocket. He's got to trust the guys around him, but even if they can't be trusted, he has to stay in the pocket. He has to be okay with getting hit. Tom Brady got hit a ton, Peyton Manning got hit a ton. The best quarterbacks don't choose to never get hit because it's not realistic. He's got to be okay with getting hit. And another thing about Cade, he's 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. When you go out there and you watch the film from him, it feels as if he's just trying and he's holding the ball and he's not on with his timing because he's trying desperately hard not to throw an interception. Well, if there could be any encouragement for Cade, I would say scan the field and screw throwing interceptions. Forget making mistakes. It's okay. We'd rather you make, or at least I'll speak for myself, I'd rather him make mistakes trying to be his best than holding the ball and delaying the throws and being off timing and scrambling from the pocket, all simply because it looks like he's just trying to be perfect. We don't want perfect Cade Klubnik. Nobody expects that. And it's unrealistic to do that. Play within your skill set, play within the offense, scan the field. Do not pick a player before the ball snapped. And if Garrett Riley is doing that to you, then push back and say, hey, this is not working. You cannot force me to throw it to one guy regardless of the defense. It's not working. But if it's you and you're picking a guy and that's not the way the play is called, then you need to step back and say, hey, you know what? I cannot do this. I've got to take what the defense gives me. I've got to scan the field. I've got to be open and willing to pick someone else other than the first guy I looked at. And you've got to be willing to trust guys other than Antonio Williams. You've got to be willing to trust Bryant Wesco, as we've seen, 7 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns versus Troy. He's emerging as a target for you. So keep that. You've got to trust Tyler Brown too, and you've got to trust TJ Moore. But really, the biggest thing with those guys is the timing. We've seen it. Don't expose them to getting hit open over the middle by a defender. Throw the ball on time, anticipate the route, which way they're running, and throw it. But at the end of the day, Just trust yourself and play within your means. You don't have to be perfect. You really don't. And Cade said in his own words, he loves road games. He loves the different pressure that it brings, but also the refreshingness of it to get away from your home stadium. Georgia Tech's defense is a bend, don't break defense. They're going to need to do what they can to take what the defense gives them, to play smart and play with tempo. I think that's the way Cade rises to the occasion instead of falters at the beginning again. Don't lose faith on this team, at least for now. This is still just the first ACC game of the season. We'll talk together on Monday if they end up losing the game. But at the end of the day, I think if we take a step back, we know that this team still has a lot of potential and a lot of opportunity ahead of them. And even if they lose the game, there's not, it's not off the table. It's just they're not in the driver's seat. And it's definitely not a good start. Don't get me wrong. But a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be looking forward to, because we get to see your favorite team play on Saturday yet again, whether they frustrate you or not. At the end of the day, it is just a game, and hopefully brings you some joy to put on that orange and really, really go out there and cheer for your team. Whether you're going to Atlanta or you're watching it from home, I hope you enjoy this weekend. Hey, I hope you enjoyed Thursday's show over on Fire TV. It's a big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts, including today's show had me on it about the Georgia Tech game. So go check it out. A college football preview show only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hey, that's it for the show today. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And go hug someone you love tonight as well. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.